This is Mark from Mark Vlogs Watches, and today we're going to be comparing a little bit the new Pepsi GMT. Got to look at my notes here, guys, which is the 126710 BLRO, and we're going to compare that to the Batman, the GMT 116710 BLNR. So before we get into a little further into this introduction, let's do a quick wristwatch check. The Batman. I don't have the Pepsi. I got the Batman. I can drink a Pepsi, but all I got is the Batman. Okay, so listen, boy, Rolex has really rocked the world. They have put out a Pepsi on a ceramic bezel, on a GMT, in a Jubilee, with a Jubilee bracelet, put a new movement on it, and it's only $300 more than the old style Batman, which they are keeping in the lineup. Now, Batman's been hard to get. What's gonna happen? Batman gonna get easier? Is anybody gonna still want the Batman? Wait till you look at this Pepsi. Would you rather have that than a Batman? What's going to happen to the black GMT? Why is there light on my nose? Will anybody even want the black? Will anybody even want the black GMT? So these are the burning questions of the day that we're going to address in this video. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Oh, and by the way, like, subscribe, do all that stuff so that we can continue this conversation forward, and tell me what you think in the comments. In March of 2018, Rolex at Baselworld has introduced the GMT Master 2 with a Pepsi bezel on a Jubilee bracelet. The reference number is 126710 BLRO. Now, this has really kind of shaken the world of Rolex because look at this watch. It's incredibly gorgeous. Has the Pepsi bezel, which is so popular, red and blue, on a Jubilee bracelet. Now, this red and blue Pepsi combination was previously available only in vintage models with an aluminum bezel insert, or if it had the ceramic insert that we see before us here, it was placed on a white gold oyster bracelet and cost tens of thousands of dollars. So this is the first time that Rolex has put this out in stainless steel. Not only has the Pepsi GMT watch received a new bracelet, a new Cerachrome bezel, and basically a new look, but it's also received a new movement. Now, the old version of the GMT had the 3186 in it, and we're going to talk a lot more about that when we get to speaking about the Batman. However, the new model here that we're showing has the 3285 movement in it, and it has some important improvements. First of all, it has that new escapement that Rolex rolled out in 2015. It's more energy efficient, and therefore it bumps up from around a 40-hour power reserve all the way up to a 70-hour power reserve without adding additional barrels. So it's just way more efficient. That's kind of important in a GMT watch, guys, because if you let your GMT watch die and you have to reset it, you have more noodling around to do than you do with, say, a no-date sub. So it's definitely wonderful to come up with that 70-hour power reserve. And it's also more magnetism resistant. So we definitely have an improvement here in the movement. Most collectors are really going to like that Jubilee bracelet, but be aware that Rolex has redesigned slightly the lugs and the case. Now, it remains a 40mm watch. However, they have redesigned it so you will not be able to pop an Oyster Flex bracelet or a perpetual steel Oyster bracelet onto this watch. It's going to work with the Jubilee and the Jubilee bracelet only. Now, no doubt Rubber Bee and Everest will come out with replacement straps ultimately that will fit this watch, but for the moment, you will not be taking it off that Jubilee bracelet. Real quick, let's talk about money. This Pepsi steel version is going to retail for $9,250 here in the United States. And that is only $300 more than the Batman. Now, the Batman we are going to have to talk about shortly, but that will be retailing for $8,950. So let's talk about the difference between these two watches, the Pepsi and the Batman. First, just a couple of quick technical differences. The Batman, which is the 116710 BLNR, retailing at $8,950, has the older 3186 movement in it, which means in theory it's a little bit more subjected to magnetism than the new movement in the Pepsi version. Although I have a Batman and I haven't found it to be affected easily by magnetism. But nonetheless, it is slightly more vulnerable than this new movement. And I think most significantly of all is it does not have a 70-hour power reserve. It's more in the 40-hour or so range. So The aesthetic is also different. It's on an oyster bracelet instead of the Jubilee. So there's definitely a different look here. We do have two colors, which is black and blue. Some people call it the Batman, some people call it the Bruiser, but even though I like this watch and I have it, I have to confess it's not quite as striking as the red and the blue, nor will the oyster bracelet, even with its polished center links, it will not catch the light in the same way that the Jubilee bracelet will, so I think it's a little bit less blingy. So let's talk just for a quick moment about what the availability has been like on the Batman, and availability has been low, which suggests that they keep production fairly tightly controlled on this watch in the attempt to make it have a special cachet. Occasionally you can walk into a dealer and pick one right off the shelf, but that's pretty rare. Usually you're going to go onto a waiting list on the one hand. On the other hand, I have to say lots of collectors have this watch. So it's not that it's nowhere, it's not that it's impossible, it's just that it is in relatively tight supply. So the big question is, will the new Pepsi generation kill this Batman? Does Pepsi eventually drown Batman? That's the really big question here. At this point, it completely becomes a matter of subjective and personal opinion. But I gotta say, if you look at this Pepsi and you consider that it's only a $300 difference and that it has a better movement and a flashier Jubilee bracelet, which frankly is somewhat more comfortable than the oyster bracelet, yep, I gotta say, in the battle of the giants between Pepsi and Batman, I think Pepsi drowns Batman. That's what I think. So the Batman will continue. It will definitely have its fans. There are going to be some people who will buy it because they can't get a Pepsi. Rolex has been fairly stingy in production of the Batman, and here's my theory. They're going to be even stingier in the production of the Pepsi. I bet you it's a good 2-year waiting list to get one, and prices on the secondary and on the gray market for the Pepsi are going to be outrageous. They have been up to the $10,000 range for the Batman, and I bet you easily that we see $13,000 to $15,000 in the next 6 months for the Pepsi, and eventually that's going to calm down and drop down to maybe $12,000 or $13,000. But I think you will have to be a very good and very, very regular customer at an authorized dealer to ever get your hands on one of these Pepsi bezel GMTs anywhere in the next, say, 2 years. So here is my set of questions for you guys. Which do you like better? What's going to happen to the Batman? Do you think that Pepsi is going to win the day, meaning become the more collectible, more popular watch? And here's one other thing to consider, guys. Will a bunch of Batman owners dump their watches on the secondary market in order to raise money to buy the Pepsi? If that happens, it definitely depresses the Batman prices and increases the prices for the Pepsi generation. Tell me what you think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, hit alerts so we can do this all again. Tap that little bell. Thanks, guys.